Inalima kahawa, nyanya, maharagwe, mahindi. Hizo ni vitu yenye inaingiza hizo vitu katika leaky bucket. Pia katika hiyo leaky bucket bado kuna matundu pia yenye inatoa hizo pesa, si ndio? Kuna matumizi ya shule, maneno ya pili ya hospitali na matumizi ya kila mara ya nyumbani.
With the leaky buckets, the bucket was really leaky. If anything is leaking, then it is very little.
Mimi sikuwa nachukua record. Sikuwa najua mambo ya leja. Kwa leja lazima uchukue record. Sasa nilikuwa nafanya tu. Na hata pesa sikuwa naona. Tulichaguliwa kama lead farmers. Tukaenda wakatufunza, alafu sisi pia tukuje tuwafunze wengine. Inafundisha kwa mambo ya miti, jinsi ya kupanda miti, uzuri wa miti, mambo ya matunda, jinsi ya kupanda vitu kama ndizi.
Yeah, earlier before we were given this ABCD information, before we were taught, we were just planting anyhow, like broadcasting. Yeah, even the farm, I was underusing it because I could just put a little vegetable, but because I know there is market for this, after being taught, I'm now doing it in large scale. What was being planted here was just sugarcane. And once the factory is down, like it is down now, there was no option. So when they came with the ABCD, sugarcane, yes, it's there. We are working with the sugarcane, but we have not buried our heads there. Even the animals, we were having just, we were not thinking of buying graded animals. We were happy with these native ones. But after at least learning getting some information from those who are exposed, more than we are exposed, we are now at least.
Mazingira imekuwa mbaya kulingana na global change. Kwa sababu tulidestroy mambo ya miti, sasa ndio tuketi tukaona ili turudishe vegetation coverage, lazima tuwe na mambo tuanze group ndio tuanze kupanda miti. Baada ya mafundisho kutoka ABCD, nili-identify opportunity ya tree nursery.
Zamani sikujua kupanda miti ni kitu mzuri, lakini saa hizi najua kupanda miti ni mzuri. Juu hata saa hii tunakaa chini ya miti tunapata hewa mzuri.
Nilikuwa na vitu kama kuku, lakini sikuwa na chunga. Na pia hata ng'ombe. Nilikuwa na ng'ombe, lakini sikuwa nimefanyia crossbreeding. Sasa hii kwa inanisaidia. Sasa vitu kama kahawa, sikuwa na chunga. Sasa hii kwa inaleta mapato. Mara ya kwanza nilivuna kahawa kilo 1000. Alafu nikauza mahindi pia. Nikauza maharagwe na pia nilikuwa na mbuzi. Sasa nikaunganisha hiyo yote. Ikatosha nijenga hapo na nikaweka hiyo kishagi ndio watu wasiende mbali kushaga mbali.
Lakini sasa hii nikisimama vile ninasimama sasa hii, nategemea pesa ya shamba, sijaajiriwa. Kama mke wangu sasa hii nikifika nyumbani ameenda shule. Sasa yako shule anafunza. Mimi vile nimeenda kwa shamba. Tukifika nyumbani naelewa ako na kitu kidogo yenye ataleta kwa nyumba. Kuna kitu kidogo pia vile mimi natoa katika shamba. Tukiweka pamoja hiyo kitu itakuwa kitu kikubwa zaidi. Itaweza kutusaidia sisi wawili. Na pia itasaidia jamii.
Nimebadilika kimaisha. Kwa vile hiyo mambo ya posho mill vile niling'ang'ana mpaka nikailete, ndio imebadilisha maisha yangu. Napata pesa hapo, napata pesa kwa duka. Hata TV imeninunulia. Sasa hata mimi naweza kuangalia TV hapo. Yaani naona maisha imebadilika kabisa.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 9th Dialogue on Agroecology and Agrobiodiversity. Today's topic is on strengthening agroecology, social component in theory and practice. Our speaker is Lisa Fuchs, a social scientist at World Agroforestry Center, that is now CIFOR-ICRAF. This dialogue is hosted by the Intersectoral Forum on Agroecology and Agrobiodiversity in Kenya, ISFAA. ISFAA is working towards mainstreaming agroecology and agrobiodiversity services in the agriculture and conservation sectors. The forum aims at providing a platform through which stakeholders can network, share knowledge and information, influence policy, fundraise, implement joint programs, monitor and review progress of their actions. My name is Nancy Rapando. I'm a co-coordinator of ISFAA. And I want you to note that this dialogue is being recorded and will be shared to all the participants and other members of the ISFAA platform. We encourage you to tweet using the hashtag agroecology and agrobiodiversity dialogues. Please keep on typing your questions and comments in the chat box. I want to invite Bob Aston to lead us on the next session of our icebreaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. So on our icebreaker, we'll simply look at, today we'll simply ask you, how are you feeling today? So kindly share your thoughts. How are you feeling today? Are you happy? Are you sad? We've shared the link on the chat, so you can click on that link. Then you can be able to add your thoughts on how you're feeling today. But at the same time, in case you're not able to click on the link, just go to your web browser, whether it's your mobile phone or your laptop. Type slido.com, that is slido.com. Then you'll input the code that you'll input is 621653. So kindly share your thoughts. How are you feeling today? So we already have one energized from the video. You are feeling hopeful. We have someone who's feeling excited and tired. Feeling hopeful. You're energized, you're excited and tired. Just click on the link that we've shared on the chat. I'll again share the same link. You're expectant. You are excited. You are feeling agroecological. You are enthusiastic. You're feeling good. You are hopeful. So you can see majority have said they're feeling hopeful. So if you've not tried, just go to your web browser, type slido.com. Slido is slido.com. Then when you ask for a code, you'll input 621653. But you're also free to click on the link that we've shared on the chat. And you're also free to add more than one entry. So you can see we have happy. You are super excited. You have someone who's socially motivated. You're excited and tired. You're feeling good, happy, expectant, feeling agroecological. Majority are feeling hopeful. They just have maybe from two more. But you can see majority of us today are feeling hopeful. You have socially motivated, super excited, enthusiastic, pregnant with anticipation, socially motivated, energized from the video, pregnant with anticipation, feeling agroecological, you are feeling good, you are happy. Okay, so I'll hand over back to Nancy. Nancy?
Okay, thank you, Bob. And I'm happy that the participants are quite hopeful. And I think agroecology gives us the hope that we need for our farming systems in the future. So now, dear participants, now I want to take this opportunity to welcome today's speaker, Lisa Fuchs. I hope I'm pronouncing it the right way. Who will be presenting and providing this dialogue session on strengthening agroecology social component in theory and practice. Lisa is a social scientist working with World Agroforestry Center and now CIFOR-ICRAF, as I said earlier. She's the leader of the asset-based community-driven development ABCD team. We've just watched the video to see what ABCD does. And she's also the scientific coordinator of the transformative partnership platform on agroecology, which is always named as Agroecology TPP. Her core interests lie in political ecology and environmental justice, and she has conducted research focusing mostly on designing, implementing, and testing processes to enhance equity, agency, and that support empowerment among the communities that ICRAF works with. Lisa is also working to foster meaningful and strategic partnerships between different stakeholders for development, efficiency, and sustainable impact, and also working on fostering diversified pathways of knowledge co-creation to support sustainable behavior change. Allow me to welcome Lisa to now make her presentation for today. And dear participants, I'll expect that as Lisa presents, if you get any question, if you want to add any point, kindly do it in the chat until when she finishes, then we shall be giving a chance to people to give an audio comment. Thank you so much. Karibu sana, Lisa.
Thank you very much. I am just trying to identify my screen. Okay. I'm hearing someone speaking. Would you be able to ask people to kindly mute themselves?
Dear participants, I just want to request that you mute your videos. And Bob, kindly help us to mute the participants so that maybe if someone has forgotten to be around, then we are safe. Lisa, you can continue as we check on who is speaking and we ensure that everyone is muted.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the introduction, Nancy. I'm really happy to be presenting today, and I'm really happy. I saw some of your names in the call. I'm really happy to see you all there. So today I would like to speak about strengthening agroecology's social component in theory and in practice, building on asset and strength-based approaches. So I would like to start with a slide that some of you might have seen before, but I like starting with it because I believe that it really sets the tone for what I want to speak about. So to contextualize my presentation, let's take a step back and think about what many of us do in our work. Let me start with this slide. So many of us, we have a household, a community, a landscape, a system that we know is at point A, or we assume it is at point A because we assess the starting point, the baseline. And then we have an idea of the point B, the household, the community, the landscape, the system that we want to go to. Here in our context, it might be a sustainable food system. In agroecology, we also have principles that we want to observe, such as just transition. But the question is, how do we do it? How do we actually get there? How do we get to where we want to go while following the principles that we want to observe? Which tools and which processes do we use? Which sequence, which scales, what matters? So obviously there are many ways of going about it. And many people across the globe do fantastic work, and we all know this, luckily. Many people have many great ideas. But in this presentation today, I want to share our experience with and insights into the work that we do with the ABCD team, the Asset-Based Community Development team at ICRAF. So for the context, I will be speaking specifically about, we have several projects as the ABCD team, but I specifically want to speak about a project that we call ABCD in Retraining. Just briefly, CIFOR-ICRAF, also introduced by Nancy, is an international research institute working across the globe. And CIFOR-ICRAF envision a more equitable world where forestry and landscapes enhance the environment and well-being for all. So now our specific project that we're speaking about today is what we call ABCD in Retraining Africa. It is funded by BioVision with co-funding from other sources. And we started implementing it in January 2021, and it will run until December 2023. It is implemented in the Retraining Africa sites. So I assume you know the Retraining Africa project, 8-country project across 8 African countries, funded by the EU. And we have sites in Kenya that you can see on the map, and some of them are what they call direct intervention sites, which includes Homa Bay and Migori, and then what they call leverage sites, which are the other sites that you see on the map. Our project has 3 outcome areas. First of all, farm or practice level outcome area that is geared towards behavior change, towards greater sustainability. The second one is at process level to identify contextually suitable, scalable, community-driven approaches. And then the third one is at system level and focuses on institutional change towards institutionalization of proposed approaches. In terms of the science we are conducting in the project, overall, we do a robust realist contribution analysis based on an actor-based theory of change. A lot of jargon, I know. And we also use BioVision's Fuchs tool to monitor and project outcomes at farm level. So just to continue, the logic and practice of ABCD and regreening. Conceptually, ABCD is related to the Sustainable Livelihoods Framework that I am sure all of us know. In the context of community capitals, assets for sustainable livelihoods, which recognize the importance of various kinds of assets, including human, social, physical, natural, financial, and depending on who is theorizing other types of assets. And different authors have identified different core principles for ABCD, but the ones that our team resonate the most with our team are the 3 that you can see on the screen. Everyone has gifts, start with what you have, relationships, build a community. So those are the basic principles upon which we are basing our work. Now, in terms of the practice, we have, as I said, we have different projects, but in the Regreening Africa project, we use this process that you can see here. It has 5 steps that goes over several weeks and weeks and weeks, and I'll speak about that a bit later. So first of all, in terms of the practice, is we have an introduction to ABCD with the community groups with which we're working. I did not say that. We're working with specific community groups that we select in a very specific way. And we do an introduction to ABCD. And the introduction is really important because it really sets the tone again for what we are doing in the context of the collaboration with those communities. And it fundamentally means focusing on assets and on strengths. Then the second step is appreciative interviewing, where now we set the tone on self-belief by sharing stories of personal achievements, of hope, and of courage. All of these things, they are theorized, and I'll speak later about where you can find information about that. Then we come to the actual asset mapping. So we are mapping existing assets and strengths and opportunities in the community and beyond that. There are various tools that we are using, and in the video also you saw some of those tools, including the very famous leaky bucket. And the idea here is that you map to understand better what you have and that you understand better where you can start, because you have a better understanding of what is already there at your disposal. Then the 4th step is integrated community action planning, where now the idea is that we are working, or we are fostering, that communities match their strengths and assets with their development objectives. So we work with them to envision a holistic community development vision, and then we work with them to really understand like how, through which different pathways they can achieve what. And then the last step, that is like a continuous step, is that we do participatory monitoring and evaluation, where we're tracing the most significant change to assess and readjust community action plans, and we do that at least annually. So the thing that is important, like in terms of ABCD, is that there are specific tools we use that are fantastic and that we believe in, but beyond the use of tools, what matters is the engagement process. It is the holistic way of interacting and of presenting yourself as an external actor. So the contribution claim that we have in our project ABCD and Regreening is that we say ABCD fosters attitudinal and behavioral change. And we say that it does so across 3 components. First of all, people realize what they have and they believe in their ability to influence their lives positively. Number 2, people decide to start with what they have and use it better and in a more coordinated way. Number 3, people come together and use their social networks to find solutions. Remember, we do very comprehensive asset mapping in terms of social asset mapping, that where people understand who is in the environment, whom do I know. We realize out of 3 of us, we know this minister there. 5 of us, we actually know someone who went to work somewhere there. So the idea is really that people understand what are the social actors around them with whom they can collaborate. And here this start element is, first of all, people can already notice and recognize each other much better and work with each other without needing any kind of external support. or then they can, in the face of understanding who the external actors are in the surrounding, they can engage strategic partnerships with specific external actors for specific parts of their development objectives. So this is like the overall logic and practice of ABCD and regreening. Now, coming back to agroecology, bringing concepts together, how agroecological is ABCD? So I have introduced the general ABCD principles that we use at ICRAF at least, which is everyone has gifts, start with what you have, and relationships build a community. I have also introduced the ABCD and regreening contribution claim, which includes setting the tone for self-belief. Individuals use what they have better, more coordinated, etc., etc. And the third one, communities share and use what they have, and strategic collaboration with external actors. Now, this ABCD work, as I said, it has many theoretical and conceptual sources, but one of the things that really matters is that it builds on empowerment, agency, and collective action theory. And just to bring up like one specific author, Rollins, the elements I'm proposing are aligned with the 3 power concepts of power within, enhancing self-respect and acceptance, power to, creating new possibilities, and power with, acting in a group. And just to explain that a little more, I would like to read a short quote where Roland says, empowerment is more than participation in decision-making. It must also include the processes that lead people to perceive themselves as able and entitled to make decisions. Now going to agroecology. If we look at the CFS HLPE operational principles, and I'm sure all of us are familiar with the agroecological principles, and if not, there's a reminder on the next slide as well. But if we're looking at the operational principles, the resource efficiency and resilience operational principles tie very neatly with the middle category of what I've presented. The social equity one ties very neatly with the one on the right-hand side. And then on top of that, there's that the approach really makes agency very explicit as a precondition for all else. And agency is definitely addressed within the agroecology principles, but what we are proposing is to make it very explicit. So in our understanding, there's a very strong congruence between ABCD, between the ABCD and regreening in particular, and agroecology. So now let's look at how we address this in terms of the research that we conduct. And we do that by highlighting by using BioVision's FACT tool. And I'm just noticing that actually I'm taking fairly long compared to what I wanted. So let me try and speed this up a little bit. So we're using BioVision's FACT tool, which assesses the degree of agroecological integration at farm level. It also identifies goals and challenges, imagines pathways, and fosters action through planning. It is aligned to the 13 HLPE principles, and it has 58 questions that are aligned across the principles and across 12 system components. There's a very strong focus on what I call here the upper left, so aspects related to biophysical aspects and on farm. There is a strong focus also on economic diversification, which still falls under the resilience organizing principle. And then in terms of the real social dimension, the thing that we're looking at today, securing social equity. So the lower right, there are only 14 principles, so only 14 categories, only 24% that are located at that stage. So if we're looking at, to just understand, we've established already that there's initial congruence between ABCD and agroecology, but we really try to understand in detail how we see ABCD panning out in terms of fact, and especially also to see whether the tool is actually suitable for what we are intending to do. So we saw that we're expecting effects under fact specifically in soils, crops, trees, and household, as well as in community and value chain system components. And specifically in terms of the principles in context of knowledge co-creation, connectivity, and economic diversification. Now, we thought about how we could strengthen the social dimensions of the tool itself. And we came up with 8 more indicators that we included in the tool. So those are the pink ones that you see now. And I put them here on the screen and you'll have more time to look at them in detail. Now with this expanded tool that now we call FACT Plus, and there's a shift and there's an additional emphasis also on household, community, and value chain, and a very strong general strengthening of the social equity operational principle. There's also a shift in the distribution in terms of changing the tool, and there's also a shift in terms of the expected positive contribution. Why we did this and why it matters, we believe, is that it's important to define what matters, and then it is important to measure and generate evidence about the things that matter. So that's what we did. I briefly will skip this, but we use the data that we collect here to prepare personalized data reports that we take back to the individual people with whom we are working, both to inspire reflection, also because it is important to share back as opposed to having extractive data collection. It's important in the context of co-creation of knowledge. And very importantly, we have this desired outcome of promoting the use of data for evidence-based decision-making and behavior change. Beyond that, so I had spoken about our 3 outcome areas, farm level, process level, and system level. And you will see that the fact tool that I spoke about is just like related to outcome area 1 all the way down here. So beyond that, we have a diversified set of methods and tools that you can see here as well, with an additional focus really on knowledge and attitudes, and also learning from process data. I'm almost done. Very briefly also, just that you have an idea how we implement it. So we have like a clear plan for when we collect which kind of data to be able to make a robust claim about the contribution that the approach makes. So my summary: strengthening the social dimension of agroecology. So in the proposed project, not in the project that we actually implemented, the ABCD and Retraining project, the focus and scale in terms of the targeted outcome areas is on sustainable practice, sustainable process, and institutionalization of process, which is at system level. So what is happening here is that there's a thinking from practice to process and beyond. Conceptually, the approach makes the importance of agency explicit and really shows how important agency is to getting from practice to structure, if you will. In terms of procedure and ethics, sorry, give me 1 second. In terms of procedure and ethics, our approach helps to rethink the way we do things as external actors who are part of the system, from needs to strength use of the data that I spoke about only very briefly. But what we really believe in is that it's important to evidence the contribution that a process makes to desired outcomes. We also believe that it's very important to measure what matters. So to have an integrated research design that combines different methods and temporalities. In the context of the FACT tool, for example, that the fact that we adapted the tool to create evidence about what matters according to our approach. We have the knowledge, attitude, and practice assessment to really valorize a structured and assess in a structured manner how attitudes are changing, which is related to agency. And then we have all of the participatory process data, asset maps, action plans, most significant change technique for participatory M&E to foster reflection and evidence-based behavior change. And then we have this whole element of data sharing to foster agency-based and evidence-based behavior change. So altogether, what we propose is cross-scalar, multi-actor, actor-based, practical, strength-based ways of fostering just transition. And that is the contribution I believe we can make to strengthening the social dimension of agroecology. Thank you. This is our core team. We have a few more members. Thank you very much for listening. And I'm handing back to Nancy.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa, for the exciting presentation and just learning of the 3 major principles that everyone has given. Start with what you have, and relationships build a community. It also gives us a hope that we are able to take agroecology beyond farm level to community and to landscape level, and also the use of the agroecology criterion tool by BioVision. BioVision is a major supporter of the platform, and it's quite exciting to learn how such tools are really being used. And probably in the next dialogues, we should be getting the BioVision team to also present on how we can use this tool. But we've also used this tool when we were profiling our partners. So it's quite exciting to learn how it's being used at farm level and the change from act to fact. So it's something that is quite exciting to us. So thank you so much. And as a reminder to the participants, I want to request that you continue posting your comments or questions in the chat box. And for those who have not posted, we will call upon 2 to 3 questions and then give Alisa an opportunity to answer them. So let me check the chat and see if there is any question. Okay, there is no question in the chat box. So that means that I will pick questions from members, comments, any additions from the participants of today. Kindly, if you have a question, you don't have to type. Just open your microphone and then ask the question. You remember the moments when they said that if you don't ask the teacher a question, the teacher will ask you. So, okay, there's a question from God, and he's asking, first of all, he says he had a great presentation, but he's wondering how you measure changes in agencies.
I would love to invite God to speak in person. God is the director of the Coady International Institute, based in Nova Scotia in Canada, who have been our knowledge action partner in the ABCD work for many years now here at ICRAF. And I'm very happy to see him on the call, and I'm very happy for the question. So in terms of how we're measuring agency, we have a very, like, as I presented earlier, we have a very complementary and very, like, I don't know how to say that, a very complex framework, and we have those various different streams of when and where we're collecting data. Now, one of the things, for example, with the FACT tool is that the FACT tool is very strongly focused on practice. So what we're doing in terms of when we look at agency is really to understand how beyond the practice it is possible to look at knowledge and look at attitudes, and to see how attitude can influence a change in practice and how they interact. So really this strong focus on attitudes and on understanding people's, basically what we do is, like, we look at what matters to people, how they feel about their ability to achieve what matters to them, and then how that translates into practice. In terms of, like, more specific things, I'll be happy to be sharing those materials soon. We are obviously still working on typing all of that up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Grace and Gideon Nyamasio, your microphones are open. Do you have questions?
Yes, let me ask a question.
Yes.
Dealing with the communities is a very complex issue. Could you elaborate a little bit on how you manage to mobilize them and keep them actively involved for more than 1 year? Do you have any reward systems for them, or how do you go about it? Thank you.
Alisa, I want to ask 2 more people to ask their questions, then I come back to you. Is that okay? Robert, your hand is up. Robert Mbeche, your hand is up. Yeah.
And I just needed, I know that Lisa was following up on the social kind of principles of agroecology. And I was just wondering whether the ABCD, is it, can also be applied to the other principles as well, beyond, say, for example, the resilience, the participation, and all those other social principles. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Dr. Martin Oulu, your hand is up. Go ahead and open. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much to Lisa for making that presentation. I just had a question about when they go about implementing these, the 3 areas that she talked about in the communities that they work in, was it Homa Bay and Migori? Do they sort of also link this to the county development processes? Like, do they link them to, like, the process of developing the CIDPs? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Martin. I cannot see another hand. Martin, can you put down your hand if it's now down, so that it does not cause me confusion? Lisa, kindly respond to the questions.
Thank you very much for those questions. All very relevant and things we talk about and think about a lot. Sorry. So in terms of the first question, community engagement being hectic and difficult. Yes, yes. Which is why we believe that it's very important to be very intentional. Because one of the underlying convictions that we have is that most of the programs we do target farm level and target household level. Also, the assessments we make about whether or not our programs and projects are successful, both at government, NGOs, different, most of that is related and is measured at household level. But very often there is an absence of intentionality and purposefulness, if you will, when we look at whom we are actually working with. So that is, it's one of the big areas in which we're working. And I will just like briefly pull up something else, because we just this week, I think it should be out this week, we wrote a paper, and again, you'll recognize the same names here of my team, or the core members. We published this paper that is called How to Stop Wasting Money in International Development, using a structured group selection approach to counter procedural inefficiency. And the core argument of the paper here really is that it's important to be very specific and purposeful in selecting, beyond many other things. So there are many elements. One of the first elements that is really important is to be perceived as non-biased as an external actor. If you're being perceived as coming through somewhere or as working with a specific subgroup of people, it can completely stifle your possibility of achieving anything, even if you have a fantastic project design. There are so many ways in which an external actor, even if they do something fantastic, in which they are not able to even get to half of what they want to achieve because they're not being perceived as legitimate. So what can an external actor do to be perceived as legitimate? Implement a process that allows communities, A, to see that it's transparent, that it's non-biased, especially not politically influenced, and that seems fair and justified, and that has a rationale. So that is why we use a specific approach. Then we go through the local authorities, because we make sure that everybody is aware we're doing this. They mobilize community groups in barazas. Then we introduce the project. We ask people, hey, are you interested in this kind of thing? And if you are, can you fill this form? There's a demand-driven process where groups submit to us an expression of interest, if you will, in joining the program. Then we use a lot of information sheets about the project as well. And from the very beginning, we say, we are non-provisionary. We don't provide any kind of sitting allowance. We don't. We do not provide any material. We do not provide this, this, and this. We explain very clearly what our project will entail, what we have to offer. And then the idea is what we have to offer, is that interesting for the groups? There are groups that say, you know what, it's not interesting for us. If you don't pay us this and that money, we'll not work with you. What does that mean? We have won on both sides. We have won because we are not wasting our energy on people who are not interested in what we have to offer. And groups are not wasting their time sitting through a session with an external actor who has nothing to offer them. So being able to develop an initial match at the beginning is so important, by being purposeful and intentional with whom you work. And I'll be happy to share the reference for the paper. And that's the first question, and I'll be happy to speak about this more as well. Then the question of, does ABCD apply to the other agroecology principles? I would like to go back to I got kicked out of sharing my screen. I would like to go back to looking at the 13 HLPE agroecological principles. So they're here on this slide, you can see them. It's those 13 principles, and those 13 principles, they are organized in those operational principles here at this level. So the principle 1 and 2 are organized in improved resource efficiency. Then here 3 to 7 are organized under strengthening resilience, and 8 to 13 are under secure social equity. So those are the operational principles I was speaking about. Why I'm showing you this is because I want to go back to this slide here, where we are showing how we believe it aligns. So the resource efficiency and resilience operational principles are very strongly addressed here. So if you look at the HLPE principles, it's very strongly on synergies, on making sure that you use what you have, that you treat well what you have, that you recycle, that you reuse, but basically that you preserve and use sustainably what you have. And that is exactly what we're focusing on in the approach as well. And then the social equity aspects are covered more in this idea of collaboration, power with acting as a group, communities coming together, communities sharing, both within the community spectrum only without external influence, and then by engaging strategic collaboration. So this element of strategic collaboration is basically already what we apply when we are recruiting the project groups in the beginning, because we come out there, vulnerable as we are, and we say, this is what we have to offer. Is anyone interested in working with us? And honestly, there are often groups, we discuss with them, and then we have like 3 rounds of verification before we start working with groups to ensure that they really exist. And we speak again about what we actually do, and that we really do not bring anything, and that we really do not buy anything, and that we really do not pay a sitting allowance. And we only then decide to work with the ones that feel that we have something to offer that makes sense to them. Here again, also already from the very beginning, a very strong emphasis on groups choosing for themselves and having agency, as opposed to us selecting and then us telling communities what to do or how to work with us. So there's like this equitable interaction is fostered from the very beginning. So that is my brief answer to the second one. And then in terms of linking with the county development plans, yes, absolutely. And I will go briefly. So I have them, you'll see I'll have like questions and a brief summary here later. This one here, I am not presenting, I'm just briefly showing you. So there's like a background about where ABCD comes from. It has a long tradition. And then I also included this because it will be shared with you as far as I understand. So we have a manual with the different steps, that comprehensive asset mapping, assessment and mapping. And as part of that, what I was speaking about also earlier in the presentation, we have what we call institutional mapping. So the idea is really that communities sit and they in detail think about, we have an association mapping, so that is focused on community associations. And then we have an institution mapping, which is more formal institutions such as government, ministries, extension services, NGOs, actors that are really external, if you will, to the community, whereas the community associations are grouped within the community, but that exists as associations and groups already. And as part of this external institutional assessment, that is where really like there is a lot of aha moments, if you will. Throughout the training, there's a lot of aha moments, because very often, especially in the context of international development, there is a generation of a dependency syndrome where we train communities to sit and wait for what we tell them to do, but also where we tell them what to do very often, as opposed to reminding them to figure out what they already have and what they can base themselves on. So the entire process is really geared towards people realizing there is so much I already have. There is so much I already have. And part of that is having access to ministries, part of that is having access to, and specifically as institutions, but also to specific people. One of the things we do a lot is really this idea that people start speaking about, you know, I know someone in the Ministry of Environment, and they told me that there's a specific program. Let me invite this person to come talk to us. If we happen to achieve this level where individuals and then groups of individuals within specific groups start noticing how connected they are, and they start making plans for how they can engage this specific person, then you already have this very strategic match for how they will achieve a certain activity. I hope that I'm making sense. So yes, it is absolutely, the idea is helping communities become much more aware of all the wealth that they have within themselves personally, within themselves socially, and then around them both in terms of institutions and people, but also in terms of the natural resources that they can use, in terms of the markets that exist around them. We have a very strong market component as well. And we are using participatory value chain analysis tools for that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We have some few questions that let's just check if you've already responded to them. There is a question on how do you identify the gifts. According to Agrinyende, the gifts within the ABCD system, quantify the gifts and link them to agroecology. And then there is a question that is there a chance that there exists some negative attitude from the communities mobilized that may hinder your efforts, and how do you deal with that? I think kind of you might have responded in your first answer, but you might feel free to again respond. And then there is a question on how do you, why do you prefer using the HLPE 13 and not the FAO 10? Yeah.
Okay, let me.
I think mainly that, and then we go to the next session. Yeah. Now, there's another question on how do you track change in communities? How do you track change in communities that are practicing agroecology? I know you talked a lot about the FACT tool, but maybe you might just want to pass on some of these questions and give them some audience. But I'll just give you 3 minutes so that we go to the next session. Yeah.
Okay, I have 3 minutes. I just briefly wanted to share this. So this is the manual. It can be downloaded on the ICRAF website. This is the manual that includes all the different tools that we use. It outlines why we believe it's important to do things like in a purposeful manner and what we believe it contributes to. And it specifically includes like all the tools as well, including how to map gifts. It's one of my favorite tools that is called Heads, Hands and Hats. And I hope you will enjoy looking at that if you have the time to. In terms of communities, how do we work with them if they have a negative attitude? We don't. As simple as that. Like one of the basic things that sometimes I believe many external actors underestimate is the fact that everybody is just the way we are. Apart from the things we have to do in life, we mainly do things that we like doing. So it's important as an external actor to find the people who are actually excited about the things that you have to offer. Chances are that, you know, if we start using concepts such as spontaneous scaling or even trickle down, chances are that someone who is a genuine community member and who has been excited about what they saw an external actor bring to the table, and who do that at farm level, but also at community level, chances are that they influence so many more other community members positively than you as an external actor will ever be able to. This is related to what we call like seeing is believing, and this idea of if someone who is just like me can achieve something by choosing to do things differently, after learning and after like learning to appreciate what they have and starting where they are and collaborating and just like realizing the fundamental agency that every single person has to improve their lives towards where they want to go. If you see someone being just like you do that, the potential for positively inspiring other people is enormous. And that is what we want to leverage on with the approach we have. So we're not trying to convince people to work with us who are not interested in what we have to offer. And very often, like down the line, there are groups that we pre-select and then they tell us, no, we're not interested. And then we don't select them at the end. And then later they come back and they're like, oh my God, if I'd noticed, and all these practical tools, because we do very hands-on things that allow people to improve their skills in a way that is relevant to them. So to always keep this mindset of whether that is relevant, whether what we have to offer as an external actor, and that it's important to work with people who are receptive and willing, because they will take it up and they will champion it and they will spread it, is like one of the basic elements. And then yes, so our research design is very comprehensive because we are trying to conduct what is called, we are conducting a realist contribution analysis. And a realist contribution analysis is an analysis where in a very structured manner, you assess different elements that belong together. So different, it's called CMOs, so like mechanisms and outcomes are related to contexts, if you will. So we do that in a very structured manner. And that's like the slide I was also showing earlier at different levels. So we have the quantitative data that is being collected. We have qualitative data that is being collected, both in the context of the process as we're implementing the process. And then additionally, in terms of, we have evaluations of different sessions in relation to what matters to people. We have the CAPS assessments that we do. And then we have a very strong component also on working with and thinking with the project staff. One of the components that is also very often underestimated by external actors is really understanding and analyzing in a structured manner with the people who do the doing on the ground, what works and what does not work. So that's a rough answer. I hope that I answered the question.
Okay, thank you so much, Lisa. I want to give you a chance to give your concluding remarks and even ask questions to the team.
Yes, so initially I was invited to prepare one question, and I was actually really interested in understanding what like the members generally think what we can do in our respective positions and sectors to facilitate an understanding of agroecology that fully embraces and also addresses the social dimension of agroecology. So here very specifically, again, like this upper part, although in the HLPE principles, like all of these things are very clearly connected. And then more specifically, what I was interested in, it's the same question, but like just more specific, what can we do to foster agency? So to really foster this self-belief in people's ability to make positive changes rather than dependency. What do other people do to really foster the use of like us, whoever we as external actors, to use that to something to build themselves in line with the priorities they have themselves, rather than just coming saying, so can you do everything for me? I will sit here and wait. That's number one. And then also, like, secondly, what can we do to also intentionally and holistically address process and systemic transformation beyond farm level, individual household focused change in specific practices? Because very often as external actors, we only focus at the farm level. We only focus at individual behavior change, if you will. And that has a challenge of not addressing the very important process oriented and structural questions that agroecology is trying to solve. So those were the questions that I was hoping to address. Nancy, I assume I just do my brief concluding remarks and then you take it from there and you let us know whether and how we address that. Okay.
Yeah.
So just like in terms of my closing remarks, I wanted to say something, and some of these things I addressed already just in the questions now, but some of the lessons that we have learned as a team that has been working together for a few years now, some of the lessons we have learned, and also in combination with all our external partners, our Cody friends, etc., about facilitating sustainable processes with communities. What we fundamentally believe in is that it's important to support and facilitate community members' belief in their own agency. In terms of implementing the process, what that looks like is that, for example, as an external actor, we emphasize inclusive talents and skills mapping, and we create awareness about everyone's capacity to contribute. Very often, and we all know this, who walk in with people, there's a focus on specific people that are considered being able to make a contribution. But if we understand that everybody has skills, everybody has gifts and talents, and that it is about capitalizing on them, if you will, and understanding what they are, and like being more innovative, that's where the wealth comes from, and that is where the equity comes from, that is where mutual recognition comes from, that is where some of these things come from that we care about. Second point, highlight the importance of people coming together and working together towards common goals. We all know that very often, also as external actors, as I just said, we promote household-focused activities. And then we pay people to do community activities. But it's very important to just have this, to remind people of the power of being together. Because everybody knows, in some contexts we forget. And often, especially in the context when we come together with an external actor, we have a tendency of forgetting how much we can do just by ourselves. And then also encourage specialized demand for external support. So where the idea is understand who an external, like to work with the communities, to really that they understand who an external actor is, what the specific mandate and the mission is of that external actor, and where that aligns with their own priorities, and what we call like in terms of identities, interests, and preferences, both at community level and at actor level, that we just really understand. We don't go to UNHCR and ask for latrines if we are not in a refugee context, or if you see ICRAF is around you, think about if you're interested in doing some sustainable land use practices with ICRAF, or think about if you can ask them about appropriate trees to plant in your area and how you have to manage them. Which contextual factors you have to get in place to ensure that you're growing trees, planting trees. Those are things that you can find out when you know that those are the things that ICRAF cares about. And you'll not ask ICRAF for water pumps. Just things like that. It's very simple, but as external actors, sometimes very important to remember. And then again, also as external actor, don't monopolize the community's development journey. Help them to envision a very holistic way, and then break it down in specific objective pathways. So both the diversifying and the specializing approach, and then ensure that you as external actor collaborate where your and the community's identities, interests, and preferences match. As I just said, as ICRAF, we have skills and we are good, and we we care about specific things. So if we make communities understand what it is that we can bring to the table as an institution, and if they understand how that interacts and is different from other actors, and there's this eye-opening about what we can actually get out of each other. When people work together on things they both care about, things work well. Second last point, development efficiency. So more aware, specialized collaboration is more likely to be more successful. Because first of all, as I spoke about in terms of the community selection initially, there's less community agony over a perceived hijacking of a development journey. That really helps with engagement. And we have all seen that communities are like, oh, now we're engaged in this process. Now we have to plant these trees, but in reality, we didn't even really want them. I think they should pay us for doing that because it's really not our priority. Yes, it's important that they don't feel and that they don't get engaged in things that don't matter to them. Let's find out what matters to whom and let's collaborate there. And then, as I spoke about as well in terms of the seeing is believing, as interested community members are likely to step forward and inspire others much more than an external actor ever can. And then also what really helps is to have inbuilt participatory M&E. Because one of the things that we often do wrong also as external actors is we go somewhere, we give a lot of intense input and then we disappear. Or groups don't know how to reach us, or it's not clear what the follow-up will be. So if there's a process that outlines how the interaction will continue throughout time, it is an opportunity to refresh. We often do those small refreshers of asset and strength-based mindset and approaches, and then just like help communities walk through, yeah, I wanted to do that. Just accompany them. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Lisa, for the presentation. And I believe that every time we have these dialogues, everything is new, and that is why we have consistently had a very good stand-up. And today, it again gives us a very new dimension on the social issues in agroecology. And I think for me, this is quite exciting. And I believe that's the same for the team. I just want to give Bob a chance to see how members are feeling today. So Bob, kindly on board to let us know how members are feeling after this session. Yeah. As Bob comes on, I think the team working on curriculum integration as supported by Vision to ISFAA would be nice to liaise with Lisa and see how these models can also be used in our education systems. I think they would be nice to make our communities not to continue being dependent. So over to you, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Nancy. So as we finalize, we simply want to get our key takeaways from today's dialogue. So I'll share a link on the chat where you can be able to add your key takeaways, but at the same time, you are free to use your mobile browser or your laptop browser. Just go to slido.com, slido.com. Then you'll input the code 621-653. So kindly share your thoughts or your key takeaways on today's dialogue. You can click on the link that we shared on the chat, but at the same time, on your mobile or mobile browser or your phone or your laptop browser, just type slido.com, then you input the code 621-653. Then you can be able to share your key takeaways. So share your key takeaways from today's dialogue. So we have one person has said, regreening project is not just about planting trees. Transformative work is going on in some project sites. Thank you for that. Kindly share your key takeaways. Regreening project is not just about planting trees. Transformative work is going on in some project sites. I'll again share the link on the chat. So you can click on the link that we've shared on the chat on your key takeaways from today's dialogue. But you can also just go to your browser, then you type slido.com, then you'll input the code 621-653. 653. Then you'll be able to share your key takeaways. So I've already, okay. So someone has said, I've already downloaded the manual from ICRAF website, very useful resource for our education program. Then we have social aspects are critical when designing development initiatives. Thank you. Social aspects are critical when designing development initiatives. Kindly share key takeaways. Making people realize what they have can truly influence positive change. Making people realize what they have can truly influence positive change. Then we have, there are opportunities for synergy between agroecology and some of the effective approaches that are currently in use. There are opportunities for synergy between agroecology and some of the effective approaches that are currently in use. So if you've not tried, just kindly click on the link that we've shared on the chat, or you can just go to slido.com. Then you can be able to use the code 621653. Then you can be able to add your input. Okay, so I think I'll stop there. And before I hand back to Nancy, I'd just like to share that we'll have our 10th dialogue, which will be on 24th November 2021, and we'll mainly look at localization of foodscapes for sustainable urban food systems. We are mainly targeting both college and university students. So in case you want to partner with ISFAA during the 10th dialogue, which is scheduled on 24th November, kindly write to, we've shared an email address, just send an email to isfaa@gmail.com. Then you also have the other email address which we'll share. We have isfaa@kilimo.go.ke, or you can share your email, you can send your email to isfaa@kenya@gmail.com. So in case you want to partner with ISFAA during the 10th dialogue, where we are mainly targeting college and university students, kindly send your email to the addresses that we've just shared. Thank you. Back to you, Nancy.
Okay, thank you so much, Bob, and thanks for the session. I first want to say that we have come to the end of our 9th dialogue. I would like to thank Lisa, who has been our facilitator for today, and the team, the ISFAA team, that is Bob, Catherine, and Faith, who work tirelessly to ensure that we have these dialogues happening, and also the Ministry of Agriculture that has continued to be the anchor organization for ISFAA. So I'll say that this conversation, as I indicated earlier, will be downloaded on the ISFAA YouTube channel, ISFAA for Agroecology and Biodiversity, and our Facebook page on ISFAA Kenya. And I encourage everyone to continue the dialogue there. Thank you for your time and the fruitful contribution, and hoping to see you during our next dialogue on 24th of November, where university students will be demonstrating on how they are localizing the food in order to serve the urban system. So thank you so much. We also welcome those who are willing to partner with ISFAA on having these dialogues go to the next level. And we also want to call upon anyone who has a topic they want to present into next year, because our dialogue sessions for this year are already filled, but we are also inviting people who want to do the dialogue starting 2022 to actually write to the ISFAA Secretariat as per the emails given. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, and have a great afternoon. Bye.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Bye-bye.